Today in British Parliament, Facebook was in the hot seat, and a global committee made up of lawmakers from 9 countries, including 3 Canadian MPs, grilled the social media giant, not just over its Cambridge Analytica data scandal, but also over the notable absence of its CEO, Mark Zuckerberg.
We've never seen anything quite like Facebook, where while we were playing on our phones and apps, our democratic institutions, our form of civil conversation, seem to have been upended by frat boy billionaires from California. So Mr. Zuckerberg's decision not to appear here at Westminster, to me, speaks volumes.
For some appearances, Mr. Zuckerberg has made himself available, but not for every appearance, and apologies for that.
This has been a tough time at Facebook. While these are hard problems, we are working hard to ensure that people find our products useful and that we are protecting our community from bad actors. That's a recent statement from Facebook. Has it occurred to you that in relation to privacy, Facebook might be becoming one of these bad actors?
I don't believe we are.
Here we are again hearing another apology from Facebook. Look, trust us, regulate us, etc. But we really don't have that much influence in the global scheme of things. In this room, we represent over 400 million people, and to not have your CEO sit in that chair there is an offense to all of us in this room, and really our citizens as well.
Zuckerberg was invited to testify, but as you heard there, failed to show. The committee is investigating how Facebook handles users' data and privacy and considering new, tougher regulations for Facebook to follow. So did the committee get any answers today? Charlie Angus is the vice chair of the House Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics, and he is joining us from London via Skype. Hi, Mr. Angus. Nice to see you. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
When you said today during the hearing that the problem is Facebook, what did you mean?
Well, we're dealing with a company that has grown with such unprecedented speed and power that we're now talking about the manipulation of that platform to upend democratic elections, like what may have happened in Brexit with the Cambridge Analytica scandal, the possibility of causing mass killings, like the Myanmar atrocities that happened against the Rohingya people, and the numerous calls from the international community begging Facebook to take action against the hate crimes. And a company that buys up any possible competition, so there's not even a possibility to go to other platforms. There is a massive corporate responsibility issue here, and one of the fundamental problems we found with Facebook is this lack of a corporate ethical code for dealing with the massive power that they have. And to see representatives from 10 jurisdictions come together for a parliamentary hearing to call the CEO, I can't think of an example anywhere close of any other corporation that would have been called on the carpet the way that Facebook was today in London.
Richard Allen, who was there representing the company, the VP of Policy Solutions for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, did say, "I'm not going to disagree with you that we've damaged public trust through some of the actions we've taken." Is that not enough for you?
Well, I think the problem with Facebook is that you have a company that is making billions of dollars, but whose policy has been to move fast and break things. And some of the things that they may have broken is the whole structure of civil discussion that sets around elections. So sort of saying, sorry, we'll do better next time doesn't cut it, because these are repetitive patterns of refusing to be accountable, patterns of ignoring more and more warning cries, all the way back to 2009 when the Canadian Privacy Commissioner, then Elizabeth Denham, issued a whole series of findings against Facebook over their misuse of third-party apps. And it's ironic that Elizabeth Denham is now the lead investigator in the Cambridge Analytica scandal, finding them guilty with massive fines for things that if they had fixed 10 years ago, we would not have seen the Brexit scandal we ended up seeing with this misinformation and manipulation of people's personal data. So it's a company that seems to refuse to listen or understand just how much power it has to manipulate or to be manipulated and interfere with democratic discourse.
How do you address the problem then? Was there any kind of discussion around solutions at this hearing?
Well, I think from from Facebook's point of view, this is a complete corporate disaster for them. Zuckerberg's refusal to answer, basically to show such disrespect for the parliamentary systems, is putting Facebook's time of sort of saying, hey, we're the cool hip kids from California, check out our apps, and then don't pay attention to how we run our business. That model, I think, is done. I think what's coming out of today is a growing consensus. We certainly heard it from the representatives from Ireland, from the EU, that we need to start working internationally to put some norms down, to put some clear legislation to say the days that maybe Facebook is a utility, maybe there's antitrust issues, but certainly there's going to have to be much, much higher penalties if this is companies going to misuse, allow data to be misused in such a cavalier way.
What does that mean in the Canadian context? Are you looking, for example, at some kind of legislation? I mean, what do you mean by stiffer penalties, and what would that mean in Canada?
Well, right now our privacy commissioner has no power to hold Facebook accountable other than shaming them. And Facebook says, oh, don't worry, that's good enough. Well, Elizabeth Denham did that job for us 10 years ago. If they had followed and they had been forced to follow the rules, we would never have seen the Cambridge Analytica scandal. So in Canada, we need our privacy commissioner's office to be given much more robust powers to investigate, to order the production of documents, to issue fines, and also to work internationally. Because one thing that we found in the Canadian context and working with our UK counterparts is that we're dealing with international data mercenaries who are beyond our jurisdictions, getting documents, even being able to compel witness testimony is difficult. So our privacy commissioner's office, I think, does us really proud, but that would certainly be one area I would start, certainly in terms of legal obligations for Facebook to deal with misinformation, to deal with hate. They have to do a better job in them saying, well, we'll hire some, we'll build some robots to do it for us when they're making $18 billion in the first quarter. They're going to need to start hiring people to police it better, but I think they need to be policed as well.
A lot of this, obviously, you highlighted off the top, has to do with political campaigns and spreading misinformation and the allegation that Facebook has allowed that to happen. The privacy commissioner here in Canada has also said that political parties bear some responsibility and should fall under privacy laws. What is your take on that?
Well, I completely agree with the privacy commissioner, and what's fascinating is that our MPs from across the political spectrum who came here to from Canada are speaking with one voice. The Liberal representative, the Conservative representatives, we understand because we've seen up close just how powerful this emerging digital arms race, that anything that, 2015 seems like stagecoach robbery days compared to what's possible now. The problem is in Canada is we have political parties who look on this digital arms race and think it's a way to win. I think we have to have some better standards for political parties just so that we have clear rules, because the magnitude of power of misinformation is growing at such exponential levels that by the next election, we will be in a completely different political universe than we were in 2015. So the political parties do not want to have this legislation put on them, but they need to. It's a way of ensuring fairness. And then the other huge issue is the third-party operators, people who are set up these, names of, interest groups who really can manipulate data. There's going to have to be better controls and better obligations on them, and Facebook will play a part, but certainly our electoral laws have to do that as well.
Before I let you go, Mr. Angus, I do want to ask you about former Liberal MP Raj Grewal, because you, of course, asked for the Ethics Commissioner to investigate aspects of the trip to India. Have you had any update on that? I know that the Commissioner says that they can continue that investigation regardless of the fact that Mr. Grewal has resigned. Have they indicated how long that may take to you?
No, I completely respect the Ethics Commissioner's jurisdiction here. He will not reveal anything to us, nor should he, on how this investigation is going to be carried out. But the question I think is really important is to the Prime Minister. When we have an RCMP investigation into Mr. Grewal, when we have an Ethics Commissioner's investigation, when we have these horrific stories of his addiction to gambling, the Prime Minister needs to be able to tell us, was his role as MP, was his office, was his, the files that he was responsible for, were they interfered with in any way because of that addiction? The Prime Minister, I think, needs to reassure Canadians, because it is an issue of public trust. And, it's certainly terrible to have any kind of addiction, but if you're in hock that much money the potential to misuse your office becomes apparent. So I'm looking to the Prime Minister for some answers on this, and we certainly will wait and see what the RCMP either come forward with or the Ethics Commissioner.
Have you had any indications from example, the RCMP around that issue?
Well, we've only seen what's been reported in the news, but someone who may have been on the hook for millions of dollars in debt and sat on major committees, who is as a member of Parliament, is very, very concerning. So there may be criminal charges that may come or may not come, but certainly in terms of the ethical issues and the obligation of Parliament to make sure that we represent the files that are given to us in the public interest and not have that undermined in any way because of owing millions or the amount of money in gambling debts. I think there's certainly a parliamentary issue that needs to be examined here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Angus. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.